Hello, hello. Welcome. Come have a seat. Jump right in. Good morning, everyone. Happy 40th anniversary to Full Compass. That's awesome, right? Cool stuff. So I'm Johnny McAndrews from PreSonus Audio. I'm also joined here by Mr. Mark Stone, my partner in crime. How many people are familiar with PreSonus Audio? Okay, so for those of you that aren't, we are a company based in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. We've been around since 1995, started by Jim Odom in his garage. Jim Odom's a really interesting guy. He's in a band called LaRue. They had a hit in the 80s called New Orleans Lady. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that song. But he also has some pretty serious studios and writing songs for soundtracks and producing and stuff like that. So very much active and still active to this day. He was actually nominated for a Grammy a few years ago. So that's kind of part of our special sauce, is the fact that we are a musician-based company. We make tools for live sound engineers and recording producers and all that. But at the crux of it, it's really about creating tools that are easy to use, that just free your mind to be able to make music or mix a show really easy. A very tight integrated package with software and hardware, and we're just trying to make it easy on the artist, the engineer, whoever's using our gear. So, but yeah, I mean, we on Monday mornings we constantly have these water cooler conversations of stuff that we did during the weekend. We ran sound here, we played at this venue, we did this, we did that, and it's like it helps us to improve our products, improve workflows, improve things that we see out in the industry that we can maybe do better for a good price, and for it to sound really good. So that's kind of what it's all about with us. We're a musician-based company, always pushing forward and trying to create tools that are easy to use for not just the novice, but the professional as well. We're trying to solve problems. So our software side of the business is based in Hamburg, Germany. The guys that made Studio One, Capture, and all of our control software are based out of there. So we have a good mix of hardware engineers, software engineers, and this mixer that I'm going to show you today is actually a really good combination. For the first time, we've actually implemented some of the software plugins and stuff directly into the mixer. So we'll get into that in a little bit. But I actually want to talk about you guys, if that's cool. I want to know what you guys do and what it is, why you're here, and if you run sound or not. So if you're comfortable, can I ask your name? And
my name is Tyler, and I mostly do music for my church, but I've been going to school for recording now, so.
Oh, cool.
Trying to learn about everything.
Right on. So the whole package. How about you, sir? What is this?
My name is Chris. I run sound basically for local bands in Racine, Wisconsin.
Okay.
And just wanting to get a better feel of some of the newer technology. I'm still
Understood.
analog, and I want to switch.
Oh, right on. Cool. Yeah, that's a good. How about you, sir?
My name's Dave.
Yes, sir.
I'm a drummer. I also been doing some mixing for other bands.
Okay.
Same thing, Allen and Heath boards,
Analog boards.
And
Okay.
recently helping a church out with a Behringer X32.
Right on.
Cut over to the digital world and understand it.
Awesome. Well, I will help you with that today, hopefully. How about you, sir?
Yeah, I'm Jason. I teach kids how to do sound and lights in a local high school on the tech side of it, but also run a production company and been in the broadcast industry for the past 25 years. So
Okay.
We have PreSonus that we teach for our students.
Cool. What kind of stuff are you doing with your production company?
So we run a lot of live sound gigs. So
Okay.
all the local bands, things like that.
Awesome. A lot of just throwing up the PA, the whole thing, the lights, awesome. And then you use an analog board or digital boards for that application? Okay. Right on. So you have some outboard gear too that you bring along, a rack and stuff like that. Okay. Right on. Hey.
Hello.
How y'all doing? Come on in, join us.
That's gonna wake me up.
So I'm just kind of going around the room and asking everybody what it is they do and why it is they're here and stuff, just trying to learn about y'all. My name's Johnny McAndrews. How you doing?
Johnny, Rick Hauser.
Nice to meet you. And how about you, sir?
Ryan and my son Zachary, we run sound for our church.
Oh, cool.
We have two PreSonus boards.
Right on. Which ones?
We've got the 32 AI
Uh-huh.
and we've got an RML 32.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much. How about you, sir?
My name's Greg, and I graduated from the Music Business Institute in Atlanta, Georgia in 1988. Got involved in a band and started my own production company in northern Iowa. Shortly thereafter, was there for about 10 years, moved to Madison 10 years ago. I still do live production, studio recording, and Gen 1 studio.
Oh,
came
cool.
out, and now I'm currently running a rack mount Studio Live Gen 2 16 channel.
Oh, cool. You're doing just one of the RMLs or RM mixers. Cool, cool. Thank you. Appreciate that. And you gentlemen, how about y'all? Just work here. But I know y'all have some sort of background in music, so what is it that you do? Or do you do production? Do you record? Do you,
Yeah, I think we're all musicians.
first and foremost? Okay.
I'm very,
You look like musicians. You look like you'd be a Cracker Jack band, I tell you.
yeah.
That's a good thing, by the way. Right on.
But yeah, I'm mostly used to like inbox mixing, recording. I would
Okay.
love to learn more about live stuff.
Cool. Right on. And you?
Most of my background's from working for like a production company
Uh-huh.
that stage, sound, lights, all that stuff.
Ah, awesome, awesome.
And my name's Terrence. I am a musician. I also do freelance sound design for Milwaukee Chamber Theater primarily.
Nice.
But my first experience, I've used PreSonus stuff pretty much my entire adult life.
Thank you.
My very first experience was with the audio box.
Oh,
that I
cool.
do. I got it in college, so that's going on almost 8 years now, and it still works to this day.
Awesome.
One of the preamps is out, but it's 8
Well, well, I know a guy that can get that fixed for you. I would have never guessed you were a musician either. You don't look like you play music at all.
The hair doesn't really fit.
Yeah. Right on. Sir?
My name is Danny, and I'm a drummer, and I also do the sound for my church.
Okay.
We've been working with the STUDIOLIVE 16.4 for a couple of years now.
The original series or the AI?
Yeah.
The AI, okay.
Yeah,
So you got a little more processing power on that and a few more effects and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
and so I kind of want to learn a little more and just see what.
Yeah. You were waiting for motorized faders, huh? Right on. How about you, sir?
I'm Pat, and I've retired. I used to play music when I was younger,
Cool.
so I've kept up with a little bit of it
Right on.
and finding out what the new high tech is about.
Okay, cool. And how about you, sir?
I'm Rick. I started back in electronic music composing back in the early 80s and got Synthesizer Artist of the Year back in the early 80s. And what was then Polyphony magazine, which is now Electronic Musician magazine. And I'm getting back into composing movie soundtrack stuff again because I just retired recently. So I want to just put out some good
Gotcha.
compositions.
So you're looking...
Go live with an awesome performance.
Yeah. So the idea of being able to record and have a board that does everything under the same house is probably pretty compelling to you, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, for home, I've got actually Focusrite. I did have a PreSonus that's in the basement somewhere. But for live, I'd be interested to, know the things that would make me sound the best.
Cool. All right. Well, I'm going to try to help y'all with that today. I'm going to try. Just so you guys know what's going on, I'm going to do like a PowerPoint overview and just kind of touch on some of the things of the mixers. And we're actually going to get into it. And I'm going to show y'all how to use this. And we're going to run tracks and stuff like that. So PowerPoint won't be too long. So here we go. StudioLive 3, 9 years in the making. A legacy of continued innovation. I noticed that a few of you guys had the original StudioLives. We were, the first company to come out with a digital mixer, for under $2,000 that had all these functions and multi-track recording and software suite, all that stuff. So we've always kind of been ahead of the curve. We're known for our innovation. We were the first to offer remote mixing apps. We were the first to include a software suite such as Studio One. That being said, all of our hardware you can use with other people's software. If you are a Logic user or a Pro Tools user, or any of that other stuff, you can absolutely use our interfaces with that stuff. Additionally, with our software, you can use it with anyone's hardware. But when you put it together, it tightly integrates. It sets things up for you automatically. There's templates for every interface we've ever made, and it just kind of takes all the mess away of when you're trying to be creative and just get set up. So, and then we also have we bundle it with Capture. All of our StudioLive products, including our little analog mixers that we're making these days, come with Capture, which is one-button recording. Basically, whatever StudioLive you have, you just plug it up. It sets all your inputs and everything, and there's just a big red button on the screen that you're off to the races. So in a live situation, that's really compelling. You don't really have to think about setting anything up. It's just you record it into Capture, and then you can bring it into whatever DAW you want. I could also just use this in a live situation with any other DAW. Capture is just designed for just to be able to track stuff really easy and quickly. And then we took it a step further with the Series 3. You can now actually multi-track record directly onto the console via an SD card. And what's cool about that is I can record 34 tracks, so all 32 inputs, plus a stereo 2-track of my choice, for an hour and 45 minutes on an SDHC card, 32 gigs. Hour and 45 minutes, uncompressed WAV files. It's a capture file, so I pop the SD card into my computer. If I have Studio One installed, it launches in Studio One with all my board settings, the last mix that I left it at. So that's a really cool thing. When you bring WAV files into another DAW, everything is at Unity, nothing is panned or anything like that. So it's really cool to use that with Studio One just to give you a nice starting point. I pride ourselves on being really easy to use. That's kind of what sets us apart. A one-to-one channel workflow, that means that if you look at your mixer that's right in front of you, I have a fader for every single channel. And I have some other things that I can do with the board. I have some customizations. There are some layers and stuff like that, but we wanted to have a fader for every channel. So that's very important to us. The other thing on the 24 channel and the 16 channel is I have a split workflow right here. So I could actually point at this mixer right here. Yeah, so we have the split workflow right here, which, I have my aux inputs and stuff like that. I can put DCA groups, mix masters and stuff like that. So pretty cool. But what's nice is that I can always hit my main mix input button and it'll bring me back one-to-one. If I get too lost in the weeds, if I'm a volunteer that's learning and I can't really wrap my brain around the split workflow, I can always just hit main mix and inputs, go right back one-to-one, make it easy on yourself. So yeah, to reiterate, if you get lost in the weeds, main mix input on the board brings you back one-to-one. We have 3 different mixers, so we got a couple different ones in here right now. I have a 32 and some 24s scattered. We also have a 16 channel. The interesting thing about this series of mixers is they're all 32 channels under the hood. So what that means is, I could use one of these rack mixers as like a stage box and basically a 16 channel controller. And it's got all the, it's got all the control, all the same DSP, everything that the bigger unit has. So it depends on what my front of house position looks like. Maybe I need 32 channels of audio coming off the stage, but I only have a front of house position that's yay. So there's a lot of flexibility in the new mixers and tons of DSP and stuff like that. So all of them are shipping and out there in the world. Just so you guys know, Full Compass is going to be running a special on these mixers. These were just taken out of the box for this class, and they're going to be running a special tomorrow. So just putting that out there. StudioLive workflow, I mentioned the user layers, and we're going to go deeper into that. But when I have that, when I touch right there on the left side of the mixer, I can assign those faders to be whatever I want. I can assign them to be specific channels if they're my go-to channels. I can assign them to be mix outputs. I can assign them to be subgroups. I can assign them to be effects returns. I can assign DCAs to that. So that's a pretty compelling thing when you think about, in a volunteer situation, if you have someone running the board, you could just give them a few channels to work with instead of them having to see all 32 or 24 channels or whatever it is, overwhelming them. You just give them the few channels that you're going to have to mix. You give them an aux mix or something like that. You give them some DCAs, and it just makes it really easy. But again, if you get lost in the weeds, you always hit main mix, input, back one-to-one. Morning. So I'm just going through the mixer, talking about some, doing like an overview, but you're not getting off so easy. I asked everybody what they do and why they're here. So welcome. My name's Johnny McAndrews. What's going on?
Came down from Marshfield.
How you doing?
I just bought a 100-year-old building, and I want to, and Caleb here sold me a $6,000 sound system.
Cool.
I want to do some little house music for the high school kids.
Cool. What's y'all's background? And if y'all just started getting into running sound and stuff like that?
We haven't done anything like that.
Y'all are just, this is it. This is brand new.
The mixer, and we're having fun, but we don't know much about it, other than
Awesome.
it's all working.
Well, I hope to help you out today. Right on. So I was just kind of going through the mixer, talking about, you know, how, you know, what types of mixers we have and the input counts and some of the features. So, multi-track recording on an SD card, that's a really cool thing. You know, you don't have that silly first of all, USB sticks they're, you know, you go to get them at the store. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. When you're multi-track recording, it sticks out of the console, so it's ripe to just be broken. So we're the first to actually do multi-track recording via SD card. And like I said before, it's a capture file. So you pop it in your computer, you bring it up in Studio One, it retains all your board settings. So a really cool thing, and it's one-touch recording. So it makes it very easy. We're really big on the idea of being able to track everything, being that we come from a recording background. And now you don't have to bring a computer to do that. And the other cool thing is how many people know what a virtual sound check is? Anyone? So for those of you that don't know what a virtual sound check, this is something we've been doing for years with our previous consoles. Let's say you're playing in a venue or a church that you play at every week, and you multi-track record the band because you know when they come back next week, they're not going to be on time. The drummer's going to be late. The bass player's going to be late. So I multi-track that show, and then the band doesn't even have to be there because on these mixers and on our previous mixers, you can run that multi-track via a digital return on a per channel basis. So without them even being there, I'm mixing the band without them being there. It gives you a nice little bass line. You used to be able to have to do this over a computer. You know, you have your multi-track file on Studio One or Capture, whatever, and you run it over FireWire back into the console from your computer. Well, now I can multi-track record to an SD card. I don't even have to have my computer. So that's one less thing I have to bring to the gig. So that's a pretty cool, compelling thing. Virtual Sound Check Studio One, yep, I already kind of went through this. So yeah, again, when you record to the SD card, pop in your computer, it saves a snapshot of your mix. And you can open it in the Studio One artist that is included with each of your consoles. And by the way, any of our multi-track recording devices, everything down from the $99 audio box up to the STUDIOLIVE mixers, come with Studio One artists, except the 32. This one actually comes with the Pro version of Studio One. So that's a $400 piece of software that's got integrated Melodyne. It's got a mastering suite. It's got tons of content, plug-in support, all sorts of things. $400 value that we give to you with the console. So that's a pretty cool thing if you're into recording. That's boring. So vintage fat channel options. So we've for years we've had the fat channel processing. For those of you that don't know what that is, for every channel, everywhere you see a select button on the mixer, there is gate, compression, EQ, dynamics processing, all that stuff. So that's cool. But we took it a step further, and we leveraged the fact that we are a software company that has an engineer that has a PhD in analog modeling. I didn't know that existed, but we got a guy in Hamburg that has a PhD. He literally wrote the book on analog modeling. So what does that mean? What he does is he takes a vintage piece of gear, like some tried and true outboard gear that you see in studios. I won't name names, but it's pretty obvious once we look at the console. He takes an outboard piece of gear, he every single component on it. There's resistors, transformers, all that, and then he builds a digital algorithm off of that. A lot of other companies, when they're making plugins, they'll do what is called impulse response, which what they do is they take a test tone, they run it through a speaker, flat response speaker, with a flat response mic, and then they write an EQ curve, and they call it the Super Console, emulated plugin or whatever. We go a step further, so our plugins that are in this are pretty close to the original for being digital plugins that live on a digital console. So, and they're all available simultaneously on each input. For every input, I have 3 different compressors to choose from. I have your standard, your standard compressor that you've always had with the fat channel, but then I have 2 vintage style compressors that I can choose from. Same with the EQ. For every input, I have a 4 parametric full parametric EQ, but I also have some vintage models as well. So you think about that, being able to call up a vintage plug-in in a live situation. I mean, that's a cool thing. And then we're going to have more of them. The fact that we're developing other plugins that will run on the console that you'll be able to purchase, use in Studio One, and also use in the console. So we're pretty excited about that, and I'll get into that a little later. But yeah, you have a bunch of different flexibility and a bunch of really cool things in these Series 3 consoles. So we have what is called FLEXMIXES, and I will get into that a little deeper in a bit. But basically, on these 32-channel consoles, you have 16 FLEXMIXES and 4 fixed subgroups. So that's 20 mixes altogether, plus your main, left, right, and mono. What a flex mix is I can, by default, it's an aux mix, like for in-ears or whatever. But I can turn it into a subgroup. I can also turn it into a matrix mix. For those of you that don't know what a matrix mix is, it's a mix of mixes. And I can actually bring my inputs into that. Broadcasts use matrix mix a lot. Cry rooms at a church is another application where matrix mix is used. But that's a really intense pro feature to have. Sort of on all your outputs. So over here, right where you see, your mix outputs, I can assign those however I want. A lot of flexibility. I can record 3 different ways on the console. I can record directly to an SD card. If I want to bring my computer, I can record it over MULTITRACK USB. And I can record over Cat5 AVB. So Apple supports AVB Ethernet these days. And I can record all 3 different ways simultaneously. So redundancy, redundancy, redundancy. So that's a pretty cool thing. A lot of flexibility with these consoles. And then, of course, I mentioned this earlier, but you get a complete software suite. You get Studio One Artist with all your, with all your mixers. And then you also get, with the 32 channel, you get Studio One Pro. And then you get anything that says Studio Live comes with Capture, which is that 1-button recording. It all works on Mac and PC. So the latest versions, you're good there. Now, what sets us apart? Full multi-track recording to an SD card. I've driven that into the ground, so you're probably tired of hearing that. 24 DCA groups. That's kind of a huge thing for a console of this at this price point. For those of you that don't know what a DCA is, it's like a subgroup without a physical output. So what I do is I can group, a bunch of different channels together. Maybe it's my drums. Maybe I put guitars together. Maybe I put a bunch of background singers together. I kind of mix them. And then I have it on a DCA group, which is controlled by one fader. And if I go to turn up that DCA, it moves all those channels relatively. Make sense? So I have 24 of those. So, you think about a 32-channel console with 24 DCA groups. I could just put a bunch of stuff in DCAs and then just basically mix from like 4 or 5 faders. And there's some cool features with our little spill out thing where if you go to turn up a DCA, the kick drum's too loud, instead of me having to go find the input, I just select the DCA, it spills out the channels that are just in that DCA, and then I'm off to the races. Custom user layer, I mentioned that. Again, I can customize these inputs however I want. I can put mixes on them, I can put DCAs. I can put, inputs in different spots or whatever. And then the state space modeled plugins. That was those plugins I told you about that are our PhD friend in Hamburg, Germany has provided for us. So we're going to have more of those. So that's a pretty compelling thing to have that sort of flexibility and sound in a digital mixer. We also just released these rack mixers as well, which is basically, so you have a 32-channel console here. Well, now we put it in a 2-space rack. So this has all the DSP, everything that I told you about, has all the DSP right here in a 2-space rack. And I can control it with an iPad. I can use this as a multi-track recorder over USB. One of the differences, the SD card on the front, it's only a stereo 2-track recorder. So we didn't give you full multi-track with that, but you can multi-track record over USB or Cat5 AVB. I can also use this as a digital snake with my console as well. And I have 3 different models. I have if I'm just doing a small band, I have a single space rack with the StudioLive 16R. So, it's very scalable and modular, depending on what you need. Yes, sir.
You guys ever going to switch over to like Android-based tablets, or is it always going to
We have it. We have it. We've had it for.
Do the same thing with Android tablets?
We've allowed for Android support about 2 months ago.
About 6 months ago, yeah.
Yeah, my timing is. Yeah.
All our products.
Yeah.
I'm not a huge fan.
Yeah. So we support Android, Mac. Good question. Mac, iOS, PC, all that. You can use our control software on. So yeah, and I think there's like that's like $75 now that you can run. So I mean, yeah, we're in there. Does anyone have any questions? By the way, if I'm going too fast, just stop me if there's anything.
You're talking about the rack mount 32, you can digital snake that with the Cat 5 and go back to
Yeah, yeah, and after I get through this, I'll show you exactly how to do that. I have it hooked up to the mixer right now. So our remote mixing apps, you know, we started this whole world. We were the first to do it. We do it well. Our stuff looks good. Our stuff is clean. It's easy to use, and we're always adding other things. You know, once we can now access capture recording directly from the iPad. So I don't have to go to my computer. It obviously has to be hooked up to the computer over USB, but I don't have to, you know, I can just access it right from the iPad now. So that's pretty cool. And there you go. There's a QMix UC for iPhone, iPod Touch, and Android. So, you know, we are a mixer company, an interface company, a software company, but we also do speakers. We have really great sounding boxes. Talk to your full compass sales engineer about it, and they can get you on the good foot if you want to set up a demo or any of that stuff. We have some pretty compelling offerings with, you know, good boxes that offer a really wide coverage pattern, you know, much wider than some of the other stuff that's out there at the same price point. So yeah, we're making full systems, and we're really excited about it. So to recap, the STUDIOLIVE 32 touch-sensitive motorized faders. A touch-sensitive motorized fader is, if you go into automation mode, if I go to change a scene, or if I go to a different, if I go to a mix or something like that, or a different layer of the board, if I go to grab the fader, I'm mixing from it immediately. In other words, the fader's not going to fight. I don't know if any of you have used other consoles where you go to switch something's too loud and the fader's fighting you. These are actually touch sensitive, which is usually found in much more expensive consoles. So that's a really cool thing. 32 remote X-Max preamps. They're all recallable now. I get 32 channels plus a talkback as well, so I don't have to eat up a channel for my talkback. Just a little background. You know, before we started doing mixers and software and all this other crazy stuff, we were a preamp company. And we had some really cool designs over the years. You know, I don't know if you guys have been recording for a long time, but the Digimax LTs and MP20s and M80s that we made back in the day did really well for us when we were a much smaller company. So we know how to make good preamps. And our preamps, the X-Max design in particular, runs on 30-volt rails. So it's higher voltage, so it just sounds better. It's a wider range, it's warmer, it's cooler. It doesn't sound anemic. So 26 mix buses on the 32 channel. So I have my 16 FLEXMIXES that I talked about, aux subgroups or matrix, and 4 fixed subgroups. So that's 20 mix outputs altogether, plus your main, left, right, and mono. I have 4 internal effects, reverbs, delay, chorus, and flange. By the way, I also have 8 31-band graphic EQs that I can assign on whatever mix output I want. So tons of processing. 24 DCA groups, and a complete AVB ecosystem, including stage boxes, personal monitor mix, coming very soon. And by the way, it just looks cool. I mean, our mixer looks cool. We're from Louisiana, so, you know, you've probably heard of Vegas mode. We have Mardi Gras mode on ours. So that's cool. So I think that's going to conclude the kind of. And thank you so much for your time. And we're going to get into the deep dive here in a second. So thank you. Appreciate it.